Back in the 90s, I produced a video called Ain't No Denying. It wasn't just a video, it was a reality check. I'd been working as a coroner, seeing firsthand the toll that gang violence was taking on young lives right here in Arkansas, and I wanted people to understand not just the crime scenes, but the people, the families, and the neighborhoods that were bleeding out one young person at a time. In those days, we were losing kids at an alarming rate. Some folks thought gang life was just something you saw in the movies. But for me, it was my caseload. It was a mother's cry in the middle of the night. It was standing over a cold body in the morgue, knowing he'd never get the chance to be the man he could have been. When I made Ain't No Denying, I wanted people to look these kids in the eye, even if it was through a camera, and see the human being and not just the gang colors. Sure, there was violence, but there were also dreams, talents, and a longing to belong. Most of these young men and women were just trying to survive in a world that didn't seem to care if they lived or died. I interviewed kids who had seen more death before 18 than most people see in a lifetime. I talked to parents who didn't know how to pull their sons and daughters back from the edge, and I watched neighborhoods trying to hold themselves together while bullets tore holes in their future. Some people ask me why I keep telling these stories. The truth is, these memories stick. They shape you. Every case leaves a mark. I can still remember the faces, the voices, the last conversations, and I don't want those memories to fade away. Because if we forget, we risk repeating the same mistakes. Even now, decades later, the lessons from Ain't No Denying are still relevant. Gang violence hasn't disappeared, it's just changed shape. And the same root causes, poverty, hopelessness, and the need to belong, are still out there waiting to claim another generation if we let them. So as you watch this video, I want you to pay close attention to everything that these young people say. It's raw, it's real, and it still speaks to the challenges we face today. Don't just watch it, absorb it, and ask yourself what we can do differently now. This has been another Coroner's Memory from the 501 Coroner. I'm Steve Nawojczyk, reminding you these aren't just stories from the past. They're warnings for the future. Ain't no denying that.
Hey, there's a person walking down the street. He looks good enough to shoot. Let's do it.
Unbelievable that in our society, in the United States, that children have to do drive-by drills. Many of these kids they don't know how to tell us what's wrong, so they're picking up guns and they're resolving their conflicts with weapons.
They wouldn't think twice about coming back to my house and killing my mama, killing me, and killing whoever else inside the house. They don't care.
Way I'm going right now, everything looking down, it's like kind of being suicidal, Really, you commit suicide when you join a gang.
The adrenaline, the rush of, oh my God, am I going to get away with killing that guy?
Honestly, I believe this is how the world is going to probably end. I never would have thought that someone right beside me would be getting killed. I never thought that I would have to, hold someone and watch them take their last breath.
Denial does come just before disaster. We're losing our children to gangs and violence. These kids feel as if they have no alternative. Gangs and violence give them a purpose and an outlet. When they become involved with these activities, they cannot fathom the harsh realities that they will face.
Seeing all of the violence around, I know without a doubt, it's very prevalent, it's very strong, it's very heavy, and I do feel personally it's going to get worse.
It is a war within our society. It is a war within these little sub-societies that have been created, and everybody's at war with one another. Our communities, everybody's so angry at one another, and there's so many guns, and people are picking up guns to resolve their conflicts, and I'm talking about little guys and gals. 7, 8, 9 years old that are out here now carrying guns.
And most people say, oh, that's a black thing, or it's a bad neighborhood thing. But you growing killers. And the reason they so violent now is the money and the gangs and the dope.
Denial comes just before disaster. And the longer you deny this problem, it's like cancer. It'll grow and it'll completely engulf your community before you can do anything about it. So,
gang expert Steve Nawojczyk, a 20-year death scene investigator, knows firsthand the war we must fight to win our children back. Nawojczyk has researched street and independent youth gangs since 1987. Appalled at the tremendous increase in the child homicide rate, he retired as Pulaski County Coroner in Little Rock, Arkansas in December of 1994. Since then, Steve has dedicated his career to learning about and teaching about gangs and violence.
If people understood that gangs are strongest where the community is the weakest, that's an important part of this, and that means that the strong parts of the community have to help the weak parts of the community. You know, the 5-H Club typifies why so many of these kids get involved in these activities. The 5-H's are, I mean, every kid that I ever met on the street come from the 5-H Club. Helpless, hopeless, homeless, hungry, and hugless. And if people understand that those are the basic things that kids are looking for in street gangs, we can provide those things for them somewhere else. Identity, recognition, belonging, discipline, love, and respect, those are all simple little things that we all look for. But communities have got to provide that.
Communities must get educated and involved, or our children will be lost forever to gangs and violence. Our society has failed to take responsibility for children that are left hopeless and helpless by their families and communities. These are our children, yours and mine.
I went to a school one time and we interviewed a convicted pedophile. He'd killed a 6- and a 7-year-old little kid in some kind of satanic worship, and one of the people that was there asked that guy, he said, how can I keep my kids away from people like you? And that guy looked him right in the eye and he said, you better go home and you better hug your kid. And you better be there for your kid when they need you, because if you're not there for them, they'll find somebody that is. And when he said that, that somebody's me. And he put his arms out like that and got a big grin on his face, and I'll never forget that. So the streets that our kids walk on are just like that pedophile. They're waiting to gobble our children up. We better turn that around, all of us.
If your child is in a classroom of 30 kids, statistics indicate that at least one child will have a gun and 6 kids will have a weapon of some sort. Our children are afraid to go to school. Every day, 160,000 kids skip school because they fear physical harm. The fact that daily 260 teachers are physically assaulted in schools across America validates these fears. These numbers apply to every child, every family, every person in the United States. A bullet is blind to skin color, gender, age. It kills indiscriminately. Unfortunately, violence and death are plaguing the African American community in such profound numbers that the Center for Disease Control in Atlanta is tracking the homicide rate of black males ages 14 to 24 as an epidemic. These numbers reflect a grim reality.
The secret to dealing with this is to be quick about it, to not be afraid to admit that you have the problem. Politicians have to understand that it's no one individual's fault. We have a tendency in this country to want to point the finger of blame and say he did it, or she did it, or the blacks did it, or the whites did it, or the Jews did it, or the Gentiles did it, or the rich did it, the poor did it. We got to get past all that, and we got to say, look, however it happened, it's happened. Now we just need to fix the problem.
Now it's into your territory also. And if you're not educated on what's going on here, you're not going to be able to help your daughter. And if your daughter or your son feel that they can't talk to you about their problems, guess who they're going to come to? They're going to come to me.
Just like, when I was in the 3rd grade, I wrote a paper, My teacher, she asked me, in 10 years, if I had any place to go, free round trip anywhere that I wanted to go, in the USA, where would I go, and what would I do? When I get there, and I told her that I would go to Chicago, to be a gang member, and I was in the 3rd grade, and she looked at the paper, and she balled it up, and threw it away. She never told my mom. She never told anybody.
You must acknowledge gangs and violence in order to heal your children and your communities. Most people don't want to admit gangs and violence are in their hometowns, or even worse, in their own homes. People especially don't want to admit that they too are part of the problem. Parents and communities oftentimes think that not talking about what's going on will eliminate the problem. The truth is, your children see the glorification of gangs and violence on TV and at the movies. They hear it in the music they listen to, and without a doubt, they see it at school. It all starts with you. You must first understand what gangs are to understand why children are in them.
Graffiti usually is the first thing that you see in a community when the gang problem starts. This Crip City Cuz, and don't forget it, usually the first stuff you see is laying out territory. Home of the streets of Wade, Pool, hood of the Eastwood, so Eastwood would be the location. Wolf Street is a community name of a gang about 20 miles from here, so typically, especially in communities where you have busing, you see a lot of co-city or graffiti mingled from different city to city. You see what you see here is a mingling of the Folk Nation, which is a Chicago-oriented gang. The six-pointed star in graffiti is typical of Chicago graffiti. And then the 187 is this California street code for homicide. So all across the Midwest, we're seeing blends of West Coast graffiti and Midwest graffiti. The Hoovers are named after Larry Hoover, who's the chairman of the Hoover organization in Chicago, and their enemy is the rival gang is the Vice Lords. So you see they've turned the V upside down, which is a typical way that kids communicate with graffiti, is they'll turn things upside down. So all of this has a meaning to all of the kids on the street. They know what it means. The neighborhood Wolf Street and Deuce Trey is the 23rd Street Crips. 19th OGC, 22nd Street Pulaski Crips. Dollar signs in the S's indicate usually that these kids are selling drugs.
A gang is considered to be a loosely organized group of individuals who congregate for social reasons. Modern-day gangs come together for antisocial reasons: crime, violence, and street survival. Gangs generally have a leader who issues orders and reaps the benefits from the gang's activities. Gangs adopt identifiers to distinguish its members. These include chosen colors and types of clothing, tattoos and brands, and particular hairstyles. Gangs communicate through the use of hand signs and graffiti on walls, streets, schoolwork, and public property.
This graffiti here is what we call tagging. It doesn't really denote any real gang graffiti. It's more intricate, more difficult to discern. But then you see here very basic 23rd Street Crip graffiti. Green graffiti usually is the Pyrus, which are the blood sets. Then you can see that disrespect has been issued. Once again, the folk gang graffiti with the pitchforks up. Usually what you see first is graffiti go up laying claim to territory, and then they come back and disrespect it. So the Crips have come in and disrespected the Pyrus, who are the blood. Here you see once again Hoover, who they've been disrespected. The V's upside down to show disrespect to the Vice Lords. So graffiti has to be dealt with in the community. There should be creative solutions to taking this down, because it reduces the value of the property, and it also causes death of kids, because kids use this to communicate disrespect to one another.
Gangs have evolved from turf and brotherhood-oriented groups to criminal groups, participating in selling drugs, stealing cars, brutalizing, robbing, and murdering. Gangs exist everywhere from small-town America to the largest cities. The four major gangs are the Crips and Bloods, Los Angeles-oriented groups, and the Folk Nation and People Nation, Chicago-oriented groups. Most gang members identify with one of these four major groups. However, mutant gangs are on the rise. Mutant gangs blend the cultures of the major gang groups. They lack the structure, but have no hardcore affiliation. Our children are becoming involved in gangs and violence for inclusion, acceptance, affection, and control. These elements are missing from their lives. Therefore, our children desperately seek them out, and when they cannot find them, they turn to gangs and violence to fulfill their needs.
I was looking for excitement, I thought it was exciting to be a gang member, Then, when I joined the gang, and I started losing a lot of my friends, and started selling drugs, hurting people, I saw that it wasn't for me, but then still, I like to do it. I like the gang bang.
Everybody together, just a family. Slav, they don't know what they is. They just claiming something. They shooting something. They don't know nothing about. They shoot each other. They don't know what's happening. They don't mess with Valentine like they mess with them.
Tim, an 18-year-old member of the Crips, describes a drive-by shooting at their gang hangout.
See, and everybody wondering about what the Crips, what the Crips click off, what make us mad and all that. Like that night that happened, when they shot up there and went through that hole right there, and came there and shot my little partner in the head, that wasn't even going on, see? That what make us click right there.
Is this the house the boy was killed in?
Yeah, I was sitting right beside when he got his brains blown out.
Where'd they walk? They did a walk by.
They came right through the alley. They came up on the porch.
They Bloods?
But if he did that, he got to cancel Christmas. You know it.
Or to become a police officer, you have to take an oath to, serve your country or serve your state or whatever the best to your ability, And it's just like that, When you become a vice lord, you take an oath to be the best vice lord you can be. It's kind of like the army, be all you can be.
All communities need to realize that the reasons that these kids get involved in these activities typically is that they're looking for identity, recognition, belonging, discipline, love, and respect. And if a community recognizes that, and while the community's doing a couple of different things, we got the police department doing zero tolerance enforcement and picking up the bad guys, what the rest of the community's got to do is pick up the young people that are left behind.
No one can tell the tale of gangs and violence better than the people whose lives have been permanently changed and are personally affected by it every day.
It provides what the family don't provide, If your mom can't, if you ask your mom for money, and she can't give it to you, you go to the gang, They can give you some drugs, so you can make you some money, And then you won't have to never worry about asking your mom for money again, Or, they can listen to what you have to say, That's most important, If somebody listen to what you have to say, then, you become more in tune with them, if somebody can listen to you.
When I came here, I didn't have Daddy anymore. And the gangs were the protection for me because just like Daddy, if a guy touched me in the wrong way and I didn't want to be touched in that way, I could come home and tell Daddy. I could go tell my friends and they'd be like, okay, we'll take care of him. There's no problem with that.
I had someone to be there for me emotionally. I had someone just basically just take me up under their arms, give me guidance.
And they need better role models, and they got to get rid of these people that these kids see in the neighborhood. If you see a guy who's got a new car and plenty of gold chains and he don't never work and he got lots of money, that's not good for a 12 or 13-year-old kid to see that ain't got nothing to eat.
Money is power, That's a lot of, what a lot of gangs see, power, And if you got more power, if you got the more money you have, the more power you have.
In America, we've glamorized killers, Jesse James. People who have done a whole lot of wrong. We've made them to look great, and of course, the media seems to feel that this is what really sells.
And when I was growing up, I wanted to be Roy Rogers. That's what I seen on television, And that's what I wanted to be, and that wasn't a good thing, but it's better than what these kids want to be now.
As a matter of fact, America is really a gangster nation. I heard a gang member, 50-year-old gang member, say yesterday that he thought he got involved with the gangs because he thought it was going to be like Al Capone. He thought it was going to be the gangster kind of a thing, the mobster.
The family that you never had. The American dream, Everybody want a Wally Cleaver family, The Cleavers, like the Beaver and stuff. But, it's not like that, anymore.
I couldn't be Roy Rogers. You understand what I'm saying? Roy Rogers is in Hollywood. I could never be Roy Rogers. But, that's what I watch Roy Rogers every day after school. But when it's right there and you can be it, and people trying to tell you to do it and giving it to you, it's a lot easier to do it. Is that all right?
I had a tendency to set my goals down the road, but not these days. I mean, kids have to set a goal. My goal is to get out of bed tomorrow. My goal is to not get shot today. My goal is to get a meal. My goal is to feed my little brothers and sisters. It's become survival. Yet these older guys are trapped in that lifestyle, and so they continue living that lifestyle. Maybe they'll see their next birthday, maybe they won't. Lamont used to tell me over and over, I'd ask him, what's your goals? What do you want to do? He'd say, I want to have another birthday. I want to live another year. I want to live another year. It's unbelievable.
In one word, I would explain gang activity, period, or gang involvement as hopeless. I believe that's why they're in it. I don't care if it's because they don't have food. It's because they feel, as it relates to food, I'm hopeless. Jobs, I'm hopeless. My family don't love me, hopeless. They have no hope in the fact that someone loves me, in the fact that someone will give me food, in the fact that I can get a job and I can be a productive system, part of the system, or that they have this thing that everybody's against me. And so if it can't be my way, and if I can't have what I want, then I'm gonna take yours.
All this fighting that we're doing is hopeless. I mean, it's until we all really understand what we're really fighting about, you know, what's all this violence and crime and what, you know, basically just once we figure out what we really want, you know, or what we really need, it's not going to stop until we can break down these barriers, you know, these stereotypes, until we can basically get some more understanding on each other. It's not going to stop.
But one gang member really epitomized the hopelessness of gangs. When he came into the office of a judge friend of mine, the judge said the young man came into his office and he had a picture in his pocket, and he took it out, and it was a picture of a casket. And the judge asked him, why do you have this picture of this casket? And he said, all of the members of our gang, our set, we've already picked out our casket because we know we're going to die soon. Hopeless.
Accepting death, it took me a long time to really understand the dynamics of what I was doing, and that accepting death was the #1 aspect of it.
Like me, you know, you couldn't really tell, you know, unless you knew me, then you couldn't really tell that I was in a gang, you know, because I could speak to you on the street, you know. I could see you, you know, like in the business place, you know. I could have on a suit and tie one day and talk to you just like I'm talking to you now. Or I could see you on the street and smack you and beat you to death, you know.
You've always heard the first person you kill. After the first person, that's the first person that's the hardest, and then you keep on going, and after that, it's just numb to you. You don't feel killing anybody anymore.
Your sense of feeling towards other people fades away. The sense of the feeling for your own self, it fades away. You don't care about yourself. You don't care about nobody. You know, you don't care what you do to people. You know, you just do it.
They're hurting on the inside. And because they feel like there is no one who cares, they're angry about it, they're frustrated about it. And first it may start as loneliness. And it may start as, I'm feeling bad. But when no one addresses that loneliness and those bad feelings, then people begin to get resentful and hostile and angry and even violent, because it seems that no one cares.
Why should we care? Why should we care about society? You know, why should we care when we walk down the streets and women pull their purses close and they lock their doors? You know what I'm saying? All that anger and frustration, man, it builds up inside of you. You know what I'm saying? And eventually, man, it's going to come out. And when it comes out, you ain't going to have no remorse for the way that you make somebody feel. You know what I'm saying?
Unfortunately, between the news stories and statistics, we forget these gang members are real children, real individuals that want, need, and love just like you and me. They've lost sight of hope and peace. These children are forgotten, left to the streets for survival. They're out there killing and being killed. We cannot wait any longer to get involved, or we will continue to lose our children.
Dude pointed the gun at me, and he tried to pull the trigger, but it jammed on him. And when it jammed on him, that was my only chance to try to get the gun so I wouldn't get shot. I heard the gun cock. And everything from then on was like slow motion. I seen the gun uncock, and he pointed at me, and he pulled the trigger. But after he shot me, he just stood there. And I could see the fear in dude's eyes. It was just real hot, man, blood just all over me. And the bullet was burning inside me, man. You know, I could smell my flesh burning. And as I was standing there, man, I started getting real weak. So I get down like on my knees.
But when you hear the things that Lamont has gone through in his life, and the fact that he nearly lost his life because of who he was and who he had come to identify with, simply because of the way that somebody flashed a hand sign. I mean, that is hard for most people to articulate and understand that.
I was thinking about, am I ever going to see my mom again? Am I going to go to college? You know, am I going to have a family? You know, and over inside my mind, I kept saying, is this worth it? You know, is this worth it? I'm going to lose my life over something just like this. Just that simple. My life is gone. And right then and there, I said, no, it's not worth it.
It nearly killed me. You know, I told Lamont when he was in the hospital, I never went to see him in the hospital because I couldn't handle it. The thought of him dying would have killed me.
Lamont survived. He redeemed his chance to go to college, to have a family, to live. But remember Crip.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm talking about. This Crip Tim, see what I'm saying? This Crip Tim coming straight from West Memphis, you know what I'm saying?
Tim lost his chance when he lost his life.
But then when you see like Lamont's actions, and when they called me the night that he was shot, I mean, I just was blown away, and that's the kind. I can only feel. I know a little bit how parents must feel when they get the phone call, and like I used to do, call parents and say, "Look, your son's never coming home again. Your son was killed tonight." Well, I never realized that how that makes you feel until it nearly happened to Lamont, and that's a message I think that no parent should have to go through, and unless we change our society. And that means everybody has to be involved in that. More and more parents are going to feel that kind of pain.
Even though Lamont escaped death himself, he watched his 14-year-old cousin be murdered in a drive-by shooting. Lamont mourns at the decrepit public cemetery where his cousin is buried. No tombstone marks his grave. For most of us, this is a nameless grave and a nameless victim of violence. But to Lamont, this was his flesh and blood. Lamont wishes he could have discovered a solution in time to save his cousin's life.
We grew up basically all our lives together. One of the things that he said to me about a month before he died was that he wanted to change. He didn't like doing what he was doing, and I told him just hold on, and I'll try to come up with something for him to do besides selling dope. So. It's 1996, and I have found a way, but he's not here to be here with me for me to show it to him, because he's 6 feet deep. So, yeah, I just wanted just to tell him basically, that I have come up with something for him. It's called Truce, Truce, teaching respect, understanding, courage, and education. This would have been a way for him to get out the game. This would have been a way for him to stop selling dope, to make a honest living, something that he wanted to do. He just can't be here to share it with me.
When you see what he's done and how hard he's tried in his life, and how he's helping so many kids, by talking to them, because he's been there and done that. And even though when you see him talking to kids about that, he's still sometimes he tries to be hard, because he's caught in that. He's caught there where he doesn't want anybody not to see him being hard. And So it's just so difficult to explain that. I mean, to explain what he's been through in his life, and watching his father die, watching his own, seeing his own family, falling apart in front of his eyes, and his father dying, and then him nearly dying, and his cousin dying right in front of him. I mean, that's stuff that I've never had to go through that. But I tell you this, that I go through it with him.
We're going to just sit down and talk like two human beings, man. Let me tell you where I came from. You tell me where you came from. You tell me what you think about me. I tell you what I think about you. And then that's when, as long as we get an understanding of where we are coming from, that's the first step. You just understanding me understanding you, because we're totally different.
We've got non-traditional problems. We need to try non-traditional approaches to dealing with these problems. And all of the stuff we've been doing doesn't appear to be working. But projects like the Coban project, projects that make people realize that the community simply give kids identity recognition, belonging, discipline, love, and respect, which is the same thing that gangsters give them. And also what we need to understand is if these kids have positive role models, if they had a positive path to take, they'd take it.
One non-traditional approach is the Coban Safe Haven Project. This community program provides children with activities, tutoring, role models, and praise that they wouldn't otherwise have access to. The Coban Project works closely with the COPP Project, Community-Oriented Policing Program.
They're looking for love. They're looking for someone to listen to what they have to say. They're looking for an opportunity to change their lives. A lot of them are looking for opportunities to better themselves. They're seeking for someone to give them a chance to speak their hearts, and don't criticize them or don't cut them down because of what they may say, because they've been neglected for quite some time.
We got to get involved. That's the number one thing. A lot of people say, well, they'll see something happen, well, it's none of my business, it's not my problem. We got to get involved. It's got to be our problem. If it's not our problem, then when the factories close down because of lack of employees, qualified employees that know how to run machines, when we start losing jobs here and there, and all the benefits that we take for granted now decline, whose fault is it then? It is our problem then. We want to complain about the things that's happening, but we don't want to do anything to help. So it is our problem.
As society, business leaders, business owners, they're going to have to look over people with records, and look at them and see what they're trying to do, instead of looking to see what they have done in the past. We're going to have to just take one step at a time. This ain't something that can be solved like overnight.
If you see some organizations out here who are trying to make a difference, talking to gang members, talking to people about violence, if you will not get involved, of course, these people need people to volunteer, to pass out letters, pass out flyers, to mail things. You can volunteer in that way, or you can also contribute financially to some of the organizations that are out here trying to make a difference as it relates to violence. And so there's always something that everybody can do.
The only people that you can blame is yourself. If you don't get out and you don't get involved or get educated on what's going on, it's just a waste for everybody. Rest in peace, Sean Trostner.
And see, for all y'all little kids out there, I'm telling y'all, don't get in the game if you ain't with it. Because you come there faking, you might get smoked.
Grandma, we're not
I'm telling you.
Things that you done on these streets, it's gonna come back to you eventually. When, I can't say when, but when it happens, you know what I'm saying? It's gonna be a gang thing. And so you ain't never out, man. You ain't never out.
Because once you're a gang member, you're always a gang member, And I tell them, I went through a lot of stuff, and you might not want to go through the stuff that I went through. And, I explain it to them. It's a lot of hard shit that comes with it, too.
Peace. Peace, please.